Good morning. If I may be forgiven for being ethnic and discriminatory on my first broadcast of 1984, Lang may your lum reek, which roughly translated is Happy New Year. And really, thank goodness we won't see 1983 again. We skipped the day after and went directly past go into George Orwell's 1984. But this very morning, isn't it a happy thought to wish a Happy New Year to Ronald Reagan at his incredible embarrassment over the magnificent feat of the despised Jesse Jackson in going to Syria and producing for the great American momism-ridden public the return of one prisoner of war who attacked Syria in his fighter plane. The next greatest embarrassment for Reagan, of course, would be if Rip Van Winkle Trudeau, who's been racing round the world to try and polish his jaded and faded part-time image, managed to pull off a meeting of the Big Five with the enthusiastic help of the Russians and perhaps the Germans and the French and the British. That would be a magnificent feat, even though we'll all be delighted to see Rip Van Trudeau go, even if he's beaten by the man with the jaw, Mulroney. And just by the way, one little correction. All the smart aleck, alienated commentators from the East are freely predicting that John Turner, the man who once danced with Princess Margaret, his greatest claim to fame, is going to run for politics for the leadership and a seat in Quadra. Don't believe a word of it. No Easterner such as John Turner could possibly get the money from the bigwigs in the Liberal campaign funds by riding in some hidey hole in Western Canada. Turner will run in Ontario, make no bones about it. And the election won't be in June. It won't be until September, especially if Trudeau's peace tack carries on to any further success at all. And as you know, on this program, we seldom lift our eyes above, I almost said lies, subconscious, above the Rocky Mountains. But on this occasion, I must give a birthday present to two of the most popular people in British Columbia. Popular, schmopular. Yeah, popular they are. One is Bennett and the other is Jack Monroe. If you don't know who Bennett is, you shouldn't be watching this program. And if you don't know who Jack Monroe is, you shouldn't be watching this program. But I'm going to give each of them a little pocket tape recorder, visible microphone, so that the next time they meet, they can get the terms of the settlement on the record accurately for everybody's benefit. Not that they didn't do a good job. They took us back from the brink of a general strike. But the trouble that has caused in the so-called solidarity, apart from the right-wing Neanderthals in the Social Credit Caucus, has been quite incredible indeed. I should expect that solidarity will run into considerable trouble this year, and there is not very much sympathy around for the teaching profession, who I predict with some brutality shall be left fairly high and dry on a mishmash of adjustment which will see the Bennett-Monroe formula applied reasonably accurately. It certainly won't save any jobs for the future. How could I give Happy New Year's resolutions without thinking about the third most powerful political force in British Columbia? Who's first? Social Credit. Who's second? Solidarity. Who's third? The former New Democratic Party. A Happy New Year to Dave Barrett. Whatever you do, wherever you go. I'm always prepared to suggest work sharing with you. Not this job, Davey, you couldn't do this job. But I've got an LLD. I'll give you the LL and I'll keep the D on cause, and you can teach political science at UBC and counter-attack some of that damnable free enterprise, slave wage propaganda that comes from Patrick McGeer, that magnificent politician who always operates in paradise. What else? Oh, yes. I'll tell you what else. My first guest this morning is a man whom you'll either think is an idiot or a martyr. I'm not sure what I think. He's under sentence, here he is, Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd Society, to do 15 months in a bucket, another 6 months if he doesn't pay his fine. He's technically lost his Sea Shepherd Conservation Society's ship, gone, you know, gone forever. He's under an order from Judge Yvonne Mercier of the Quebec Superior Court not to discuss his situation in public, or he could face contempt. And here he is, going to talk up. Man, just looking for trouble. Absolutely looking for trouble. But I do promise I will not send a tape to Yvonne Mercier, the judge, unless I get a court order to produce one. So here he is, poor old Paul. Such a nice guy, too. But you know how they get. They get paranoid once they get involved in saving the world. On a more sober note this morning, I've got Elizabeth Edinger, who is a law professor at the University of British Columbia, who, along with Gordon Tariff, an assistant registrar of the Supreme Court, has produced a fascinating study for the Law Reform Commission of British Columbia on the office of the sheriff. That's Barrett's brownies, we old-timers used to call them. And when David Vickers invented Barrett's brownies in 1973, I think it was, or 1974, it took about 50 to do the work of 6 halt and lame police officers in the Vancouver courts alone. But this report really just examines, makes a mention of possible privatization of some of the sheriff service, but it just examines the way the system works, and it'll be an information program. But first this morning, to that intrepid, self-described freebooter and pirate, Paul Watson, after the break.
I really don't feel that we had a fair trial, and I really feel there's a lot of political pressure that was on that judge. But the one thing I really feel glad about is the fact that that penalty indicates to us that the seal hunt is over, and that they're just trying to punish us now for having brought it to an end.
The Sea Shepherd Society is what you might call an independent group. And I remember when Paul Watson broke away from Greenpeace itself for various reasons we won't go into right now. But as you stand now, this is your second conviction for a sealing offense. Did you or did you not serve time in jail before?
In 1980, I had a $8,300 fine plus a 10-day sentence.
For what?
For approaching within a half a mile of a person killing a seal. That's a violation of the Seal Protection Act.
And you had the gall to go back again last spring, and what did you do then?
Well, we brought our ship in, and all I did was approach the sealing vessels, and I said, would you please remove your men from the ice, and would you kindly return to the Magdalen Islands? And they all did. We didn't hurt anybody, we didn't damage any property, and we were arrested by 100 RCMP officers on 2 ships with 12 helicopters. And they brought us to Nova Scotia, where we were jailed. And the Nova Scotia prosecutor didn't want to take the case, so they loaded us into an armed forces plane, flew us to Quebec, and brought us before the very same judge who had sentenced me in 1980. We were charged with conspiracy to commit mischief, conspiracy to commit extortion, which is a charge they dropped, plus 7 counts of breaking the Seal Protection Act by protecting seals.
Just a minute, you're telling me you present this wonderful picture. Now, you're the guy who sank, who rammed an illegal bootleg whaler off the Azores, are you not?
Well, actually, we sank 3 of them, 1 in Portugal and 2 in Spain, but they were illegal whaling vessels.
That's right, and you sank them?
Oh, yeah.
Without fear of favor?
Well, we certainly did it in a way that would ensure that nobody would be hurt on board.
That's right, but you sank them. So this time you just drove up onto the ice and said, well now, gentlemen, we'd be very happy indeed if you would pack up your little ships and your little billy clubs and go home.
Well, we were...
Is that, in fact, what happened, or are you gilding a lily, Paul Watson?
We were very polite. We said, would you please remove your men from the ice? Actually, we didn't make a threat. The threat said, I said that I would ram any sealing ship coming out of the port of St. John's. And our blockade of St. John's Harbor lasted 10 days, and that time not one sealing ship did come out of the port.
Well, that was a threat, if ever there was a threat.
Yeah, but then we went to the Gulf of St. Lawrence, where we made no threat. But we were not arrested for what we did off in Newfoundland. We were arrested for what we did in the Gulf of St. Lawrence.
Right, and when you were arrested and taken to a court in Nova Scotia, you're implying that the prosecutor there didn't think there was sufficient material to charge you.
Yes.
And so the federal prosecutors took you to Quebec City.
No, we were before a provincial prosecutor in Quebec City, which is something we can't understand because the incidents took place in Nova Scotia waters. The arrest took place in Nova Scotia, so why are we on trial in Quebec? We couldn't understand
Because
that.
it was under the criminal code you were charged.
But still, nothing took place in the province of Quebec. The arrest or the incident or the so-called crime did not take place in the province of Quebec.
Did you have a lawyer?
We hired lawyers from Montreal.
Did they argue these points?
They did, but to not much avail. Our lawyers were actually quite shocked at the outcome. In fact, they were absolutely convinced that the criminal code charge of conspiracy be thrown out. As it is, all crew members were charged with that. Initially, 18 charges were dropped, which meant myself and my first engineer were charged with conspiracy. Then they dropped that, so I was convicted of conspiring with myself.
With yourself. An intent to be nasty to something or other. You got 15 months in the bucket.
Yes.
Another 6 months if you don't pay $5,000.
Yes.
Your ship has been confiscated.
That's true.
Your crew members were fined, some of them $3,000 to 3 months. Correct?
Right.
Now,
actually, the taking of the ship, which is worth about $1 million, is the largest penalty ever given to a conservationist anywhere in the world.
Is that so? Now, what are the specific orders you got from Yvonne Mercier about not discussing this matter in public, especially in programs such as this?
Well, initially I didn't understand them because they told me to sign the bail conditions and I asked for a translation. They said, you want to get out, sign them. So I signed them. You
mean you had no bilingual translation?
No. No. And
well, you can win that in the Charter of Rights in 5 minutes with David Goodness nowadays.
But the other thing, too, is that no court or no politician can tell a free person in a free country that he can't speak to whom he wants to speak. If it was, okay, we can't talk about the specifics of the case, I can understand it. But the order was that I could not talk about anything to any reporter in Canada or outside of Canada.
Now, well, you're not going to sit here and tell me the judge was wrong. You're mystified by his decision. You're not attacking his decision as such.
Oh, certainly. We're challenging his decision. That's why we're appealing it.
But you're not going to argue the facts about your conviction. You were convicted.
We were convicted.
And you are appealing it?
Yes.
And he said you wanted to talk about anything?
Couldn't even discuss the weather.
What about talking in the United States, in which your society is based, as I recall, in the state of Hawaii?
We're in Hawaii, California, and Washington, but that was what happened when we were released last time. The condition was we couldn't speak to the press in Canada, so we went to the States and had a press conference. So obviously they got around that by saying, now I can't talk in the States or in Europe, or anywhere actually. The condition says any journalist anywhere in the world.
Well, Yvonne Mercier, with all due respect, might think you're in contempt right now by suggesting the fact, for instance, as you have suggested, that you can't understand why you were charged in Quebec when the offences took place in Nova Scotia.
Yeah. But our only defense is a free press. We're certainly not going to get a fair defense in the province of Quebec.
That's a very contemptuous statement. Are you suggesting it's not possible to get justice in the fair province of Quebec?
I don't think so.
If you're a seal, what are you? You're an environmentalist determined to stop the seal hunts.
Well, it's pretty bad when you go through a trial and you're sentenced, and it takes you a couple of days to figure out just exactly what your sentence was or what the decision was because you can't understand anything that's happening.
Where did you go to jail?
In Orsonville Prison in Quebec City.
You were just in some kind of remand place, were you, or were you actually going to be serving your sentence there?
That was the prison, yes.
What kind of jail was it?
It's the second largest prison in Quebec. It's you know, 20-foot walls, razor wire, armed guards on the towers.
For first offenders, minor criminals, or for big stuff?
Well, the guys that were in with us were armed robbery, fraud, murder, that sort of thing.
And you were doing 15 months for being polite to sealers on the ice, saying, kindly go back to your base?
Yes. In fact, there was the guy in the cell next to me was armed robbery 2 months.
Is the Seal Shepherd Society broken down the drain?
Well, we're broke. We're always broke. That's sort of been our...
but I remember you were making big money on films, you got great support from the Fund for Animals, Cleveland Amory, and I thought you were a really wealthy kind of semi-free enterprise organization making a lot on the side.
We've never been wealthy. It's always cost a great deal of money to operate our vessel, plus this legal battle cost us $35,000.
So you're broke right now?
Yes.
I'm going back to jail perhaps for 15 months.
That's a possibility.
Perhaps longer if he adds a sentence for contempt.
That's a possibility, but on the bright side of it is that we've won the battle. They can do whatever they want to us now. I mean, I've been fighting the seal hunt since I was 8 years old, and it's over. The only way it can survive now is as a bounty hunt with a government subsidy, which is something that they're proposing now. But as a viable industry, the seal hunt has got no future.
I mean, you've killed it.
It's dead.
And Greenpeace.
Well, I don't know about Greenpeace. But
After the break, Paul Watson. What's your bail right now?
$10,000. That was put up by Mike Farrell back in March, and we just extended
Who's Mike
it.
Farrell?
He's one of the actors on MASH.
Oh, the doctor fellow, the one
Yeah.
guy who works alongside the skinny one with the long chin, right? He put up the 10,000 bail. Does that cover you and all of your crew?
No, the total bail for the crew is $55,000.
Is that up too now?
That's what it's always been.
Oh, I see. You've had it up since March, so they're all out in bail too.
Yes, $2,000 for each crew member, except for $7,500 for my first engineer.
Now you've, I don't know, you don't know whether or not you're going to get your million dollar Sea Shepherd back or not, do you?
Well, it's a fight. We'll just have to see.
What kind of response have you had?
Well,
or do you find that people, as I opened this morning, just think you're overdoing it a bit, you know, a little bit big in the head, to use an expression? You think you could change the laws of Canada by civil disobedience and get away with it? It ain't all that easy.
I think when any government takes away your right to communicate with it, the only alternative they leave open for communication is confrontation.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that you have set yourself as a civilly disobedient person against the stated and clear laws of this country, and you must expect to be punished.
Well, I expect the possibility of punishment, but it still will not deter me from challenging the laws which I think are wrong through civil disobedience.
Well, now you've done 10 days in jail before, you did 9 days before you got out on bail now, and you've got 15 months to serve if you lose your appeal. Can you stick 15 months in jail?
Well, as Gandhi said, it's a good place to catch up on your reading. If you have to do it, you have to do it.
What kind of public response have you had since this latest? You certainly achieved continent-wide, if not worldwide, publicity. How much money has come in because of this scheme?
Very little. I mean, it's hard for the public to get in touch with us. We don't have like direct mail campaigns like other large organizations.
Hasn't Cleveland Emery got an endless bank account?
No, actually he doesn't. He's given us a couple $1,000s, but he has his problems with rescuing burros in the Grand Canyon and goats from being bombed by the U.S. Navy on San Clemente Island. You know, everywhere you turn, you got more and more projects. You know, animals all over the world are under siege, and the habitats are under siege. It's a very expensive.
Don't you feel in the times of the day after that your particular cause, worthy though it may well be, has kind of lost its public appeal and glamour?
Well, it doesn't matter whether it has or not. We still have to continue doing it because it's the right thing to do. I mean, I'm certainly not going to sit idly by and watch species after species go extinct. I don't care.
You've stopped the Canadian seal hunt now, you say, effectively.
I think that if it goes on, it will only go on as a glorified welfare project for on the part of the federal government. But as a viable industry, it is dead.
Well, it's been dead since you brought Bridget Bardot out, hasn't it? With all the propaganda in Europe.
It's lost money.
It's lost money since then. Now, what about your ship? Where did you get the Sea Shepherd? Where did you get the money for that one, the $1 million ship?
Well, I sold a book that I wrote about the exploits of the Sea Shepherd Society. I sold the rights to Warner Brothers, and with the $250,000 I got from that, I purchased this ship. And I guess we'll have to look at another way of raising money if we're going to replace it.
Have you got any offers of a free ship?
We have had an offer of ship donated, which is presently in South Africa, and we're just looking into the possibility of getting that now.
You haven't decided to take it yet?
No.
I don't know. But how many people are in the Sea Shepherd Society? Only a handful.
We have 2,000 members in North America and another 2,000 in Great Britain.
And you stopped the sealing in Scotland?
Yes, actually they shut it down in September of '83, and the Scottish office gave us the credit for it. It cost the British government £24,000 to arrest my crew last year, and the hunt only made £14,000, and so they can't go on doing that every year. So they decided that in the interest of restraint that they would...
They only take a handful of seals. Where is it, in the Orkney Islands?
2,000. In fact, they want to kill 2,000 gray seals off of Nova Scotia and Sable Island within the next few months, so that's another fight that we have on our hands.
Yeah, maybe you'll have to go back into Greenpeace, so you've got an umbrella organization that can at least do the money raising while you put yourself, if you're not in jail, on the firing line.
Well, I don't think that Greenpeace would ever allow me back into that organization. All the original members, 95% of them anyway, of Greenpeace have no longer with the organization. It's unfortunate that when groups become big, they sort of lose touch with their roots. And
I suppose so. Are you begging for contributions this morning?
Oh, yes. We're always looking for contributions.
Okay, what do you think of Watson? We'll do a section of telephone calls with Watson. Is he a martyr or is he an idiot? After the break. Paul Watson and the Sea Shepherd out on bail with how many members of your crew?
20.
20 members of his crew. He faces a potential 21 months in jail. That's 15 months straight, another 6 months if he doesn't pay a $5,000 fine. So the total fines to your crew?
65,000.
65, is that all? Oh, mere bagatelle. Go ahead from Prince George to Paul Watson.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Webster and Mr. Shepherd.
Right.
I was just wondering, like this gentleman here is saving animals around the world, and you can look at our own province, Mr. Webster, and we don't have game wardens north of Prince George, no game wardens on the island of the Queen Charlotte, no game wardens north of Smithers, and our government tells us, the police, like report on other people if they take animals illegally. And every day if you go into a bar, into a store, you hear people take animals.
And you're saying, well, of course, Greenpeace tried something on that big, expensive German hunt on the plateau up there, but you're just talking about restraint and the expenditures by the Social Credit government and the slaughter by the Canadian National Railway of the moose on the tracks.
I'm saying, no, sir, we can't police ourselves. We need groups like this to help police because the governments can't take care of the animals themselves.
Good point. Are you interested in helping policing the wildlife on the ground in British Columbia from bootleg hunters?
We're a marine mammal protection organization. That's effectively what we are, is a police force on the high seas.
Well, now, was that your chosen jurisdiction?
Yes.
Somebody else will have to do the...
There's certainly a lot of room for people to be involved in.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's you.
I'd like to make a couple of points, then I'll hang up. First of all, I'd like this gentleman to explain where the sea lions, which are there thousands of them around, and plus the seals, where are they in the food chain? I mean, taking salmon. Like, for example, the sea lion, the big ones there, they weigh almost a ton. How much salmon do they have to herd in one day? And also, the other point I wanted to make was that he's playing around with the food chain here, and nobody's going to have anything on the table if he's not careful. But primarily, he made a statement prior to his sojourn on the East Coast there that he was going to ram things on the high seas. You can't do that.
Okay, he's against you on your piracy.
Well, I don't know if we can't do it. I have done it, but...
you shouldn't.
Well, sometimes it's necessary. But as far as fooling around with the food chain, that's an argument fishermen are always coming up with, that seals eat too much fish and everything. It's a biological fact that a healthy predator population is essential for a healthy fish population or any other prey population that they are in fact preying upon. But I really can't buy that argument. When Jacques Cartier first came to Canada, he described that you could throw a wicker basket into the water and pull out codfish in it. At that time, there were 30 million harp seals, and now with about 1 million of them, they're trying to say that the seals are a threat to the fish.
At that time, there were only 100 million people on Earth. Today, we've got 4 billion or
But the problem is that most of the fish that's taken off the East Coast, the threat is not coming from the seals. It's coming from foreign dragging operations, the Poles, the Russians. If the government was really concerned about the fishermen on the East Coast or this coast, kick those guys out and allow the seals to have their due.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Morning, ma'am.
I think he's an idiot, and I think he's quite old enough to understand that if you go around ramming ships and breaking laws, you have to pay for it. And I have one question for him. Where does he stand on Canada's most endangered species, the babies killed by abortion? Does he get at all concerned about them?
That's hardly relevant, ma'am.
Oh, it's very relevant. Maybe babies aren't as cute as baby seals
Well,
to some
I'll tell
people,
you, if
but
we-
to most of us
I
they
can
are.
answer that.
Much cuter.
In other words, his priorities are wrong. He should join pro-life
Absolutely.
instead of pro-seal. Thank you.
Well, I can answer that simply by saying if we don't save the seals and the whales, we're not going to save the oceans. If we don't save the oceans, we're not going to save humanity, and there won't be a world for any of these babies to enjoy if they do survive.
Go ahead, please.
Yes. I don't really agree with him too much. There's laws in this country, and they should be adhered to. And if he can't do it in the legal way, he shouldn't be out there at all. And I think he's put a lot of people out of work, and I don't really have any sympathy for him.
Paul?
There are laws in this country entitled like the Seal Protection Act, which how they pass these laws is they find out what you're going to do. For instance, when we originally wanted to put the dye on the seals to destroy the commercial value of the pelts, that was perfectly legal until 5 days before we were to implement the tactic. They passed a law to stop it. When a government can pass laws like they change their shirts designed to specifically stop somebody, that's not a law, that's some sort of a dictatorial policy.
That's what is known as parliamentary democracy in Canada, by which we are ruled under order and council regulations and an absolute majority which can turn men into women and whatever. and they can even make you conceive an illegitimate child, a child. The only thing they can't do is make you love the little darling. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Watson, I support your ultimate intentions, and I can sympathize with your frustrations as to laws and the prevention of your intentions, but I can't sympathize with anarchy. As far as you breaking the laws and ramming ships, I just have no sympathy for you, and I think you should go to jail.
Well,
you do have a system, and it's called politics, that if you are sincerely in if your intentions are sincere, you can get involved in the political system and be a creator of new laws.
Okay, I think we can get that.
We go around and break laws. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You say if he breaks law, send him to jail.
But what do you do in a situation where pirate whaling operations are taking place when there is no law that can touch them because they're operating internationally on the high seas?
Then you have international responsibility to make sure there is a system there.
Just a minute.
The International Whaling Commission passed regulations to stop this. For 10 years, they could not stop the pirate whaler Sierra. It was killing anything it wanted, blatantly in defiance of the law. We set ourselves up as a police force, and we were the only police force that was able to enforce that law. We're not operating anarchistically. We're operating according to international regulations.
The Sea Shepherd's pirate whale killing that killer ship was something different from the domestic business of stopping the sealing.
But we've also never damaged a sealing vessel, and in fact, I never had any intention of doing so.
No, I honestly think we do need people like you who are prepared to go front and center and go to jail for life if necessary for their cause. Right?
Well, that's all.
I don't want to do it, but if you'll do it for me, I'll cheer from the background. Go ahead, please.
Yes. I'd just like to say that thank God somebody cares for things that are still living. And we have such a time going on where nobody cares. But I would like to see after this program where we can send money to help.
You will do. We'll put up the name after the break. More calls to Paul. Mind you, the guilt is off the gingerbread a little bit, isn't it, Paul? This is the third time I've interviewed you. Before and after your whale killer ship, and now this time. This is your second time in jail. Jesus, 15 months? How long would you serve, 5?
I think you're...
No.
With good behavior, you have to do a third of the sentence.
Yeah, be out in 5 or 6 months.
Yeah.
Is it easy to do good behavior in a jail, though?
Well, it is if you're English in a French jail when nobody understands you anyway. You're sort of a phantom. You just sort of drift around. You're not
You
even in
mean
the
you don't
hierarchy.
get served in your own, one of the official languages of the country?
Well, I couldn't find a single prison guard that spoke English, but it must be the same for...
Total breach of your rights under the Charter.
It must be the same for Quebec prisoners here, too, but...
Well, that's another total breach of the rights of the Charter. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Jack.
Yes, sir.
I just want to tell you that I'm on Paul's side completely. And one thing that I'd like to remind you is that it was people like Paul who practiced civil disobedience, if you like, who saved the sea otters, who saved our Canadian beaver, God help them.
I don't remember any campaign that saved beaver where anybody went to jail.
Oh, my God.
Do you, Paul?
In the history, when the Hudson's Bay was trapping.
Fair enough. You admire him. That's fine. Let's carry on. Go ahead, please.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
I was beginning to wonder if you were going to get any support at all this morning. I know that animals don't have any voice at all, whether it's domestic animals or wild ones. And I think it takes a lot of courage to do civil disobedience and go to jail and things like that.
Take a bow, Paul. Take a bow.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead from Cranbrook.
Yeah, good morning, Jack.
Morning.
Yeah, I'd just like to take issue with your opening remarks there about the powers that be in British Columbia. I think you missed the boat with the Fraser Institute being the #1 power. And as far as Paul goes, I'd just like to ask Paul how he feels about the unemployed seal hunters in Newfoundland now. What's he prepared to do for them?
Well, in fact, we've offered to pay them money to not kill seals, and that's been rejected because they say they wouldn't take welfare from the likes of us. But it looks like they're quite ready to take welfare from the federal government in the form of a subsidy. But the fact is there's only 150 sealers that are employed on the sealing ships for 3 weeks out of every year. It's hardly an ongoing form of employment.
Okay, you would just say Fraser Institute is of no account now in this province and will not play any important part in the policies or the consultations with social credit government in the years ahead.
That remains to be seen, I guess.
Pardon?
I say that remains to be seen, I guess.
Well, same as my remarks about the NDP, those remain to be seen, but where are they going to find a leader? Okie dokie. Victoria, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to congratulate Paul on his stand and for fighting for things that many of us believe in, but we don't fight for. And I'd like to know where I could send a contribution.
We'll put it up at the end of this break as Paul finishes up. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Morning.
I'd just like to say that Paul Watson is doing a great job. He's taking on the governments and industrial maniacs that have no regard for life. We can't keep on taking shots at ocean life with tanker traffic, big ships, the Russians, things like that. Personally, myself, I think the civil disobedience charge against Paul, those charges were nothing but a crock. They were political orchestration, if anything. I think he's doing a great job, Jack.
Thank you. Just by the way, as an environmentalist, there's a story on the wire this morning that massive 50-mile or 50-kilometer oil slick has disappeared in the Persian Gulf. They don't know where it went.
Yeah, it actually last month that exterminated the last populations of dugongs in the Persian Gulf are now
You don't
extinct.
know that.
Yeah, they've been declared by the World Wildlife Fund to be extinct.
Dugongs, that was a mermaid.
They're sort of like a manatee, yeah.
Yeah, they were the mermaids, weren't they, dugongs? Always wanted to meet a dugong. Go ahead, please. I thought most of them were in the cabinet in Victoria.
Well,
Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the gentleman can tell us once again what happened in Nova Scotia, and then it went to Quebec. I'm wondering if it hadn't have gone to Quebec, if we wouldn't be trying him now in British Columbia after it marched across the country. In other words, I think the law has proved...
You're telling me the truth on that. I mean, the clinical facts. Nova Scotia, arrested in Nova Scotia.
In fact, 4 of us were arrested physically on Cape Breton Island, on the shore.
So it's a third place.
Well, that's part of Nova Scotia.
Part of Nova Scotia. You're taken in front of a court there, were you?
Yes, and remanded to Quebec.
Remanded to Quebec. That's strange. I don't understand that. But it was, were all the charges under the criminal code, or were some of them under provincial legislation?
They were all, in fact, they're all federal. The regulations were federal regulations, the Seal Protection Act.
Federal regulations. I don't know if that's
I
actually...
support him, Jack, and when you put the sign up, he'll have my contribution too. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead from Nanaimo. Nanaimo.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Webster.
Morning.
I'm just phoning to voice my opinion. Any backing up you need at all, I'll be right behind you. I'd go to jail for life myself.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead, please.
Hello.
That's you.
Yes. Good morning, Jack, Paul. I'd just like to say that I'm very proud to hear that someone's actually offering their time and a lot of effort and so forth to helping make this world a little better, because I think we really need people like Paul to help save a lot of the species that are becoming extinct.
Yeah, but will you send money?
I sure will.
Okay, watch for the address. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Yeah.
I'd like to congratulate Paul and wish him luck in burying that seal hunt for good.
Friends everywhere. It's quite surprising. I was getting a bit cynical about you myself. Go ahead, please.
I would like to say that I was in Newfoundland for years, and I believe Paul is on the right track, because no matter what the federal government may say, there is much cruelty in the slaughter of seals. Hopefully we are near the end of it, but I'm very much encouraged to see someone who has the guts, could I say, that Paul has to stand out for what he believes and really do something about it. There was a lady at the beginning of this program, when the lines became open, said, what about the children? Well, of course we all have sympathy towards the children. But does this lady believe, she didn't seem to from what she said, and maybe I'm wrong in taking this line, that in the Bible, in Romans 8:21, we are told that the whole creation is going to be delivered from corruption into glorious liberty of the children of God, and the whole creation I take as the seals as well as people.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you reminded me of Romans 8:21. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Yes, I would like to mention, Mr. Webster, in answer to your question, I have to say that Mr. Watson is a definite martyr. And to you, Mr. Watson, I have to say, congratulations, sir. You're a better man than I, a better man than I. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Put up the address. Sea Shepherd Society, Post Office Box 48446, Vancouver, BC, V7X1 A2. How much you got in the kitty at the moment?
We're in debt for about $30,000.
$30,000. When do you go back to appear in front of, is it His Lordship or His Honour?
Oh, I think it's a new judge under the appeal court.
Oh yeah, you're going to the Quebec Court of Appeal.
But we haven't really had a date set yet. And the one thing that we're certainly definite that we should be able to win is to get our ship back, because he had no power to take it. It's not a fishing vessel, and under the Fisheries Act, they can only seize fishing vessels. So we're pretty confident that we will get it back. One of the reasons we think it was confiscated was the fact that we have an investigation ongoing because with the internal security of the RCMP, because over $6,000 was stolen from the crew, plus binoculars and cameras, and that investigation effectively was quashed when the ship was confiscated, because now we have no proof of anything lost.
I want you to say that again. What was missing from the ship when you got access to it after it was seized?
Well, I was allowed onto it in June. Most of the cameras, the binoculars, any small, like ship's clocks were all taken, probably taken as souvenirs by the boarding police officers, but I don't really know. But the thing is, I had $2,000 in the ship's safe. That was not returned to me. And the crew had amongst them a total of $4,000. That was not returned to them. All cash was confiscated.
Did you lay an official complaint to the RCMP about the disappearance of personal monies?
Yes, with their internal security, and it was under investigation. But now, of course, with the ship ordered confiscated, that puts to rest any proof that we can have, because we have no access. Might it be
that when a ship is confiscated, everything on it, including the crew's personal possessions and money, become confiscated?
That's in fact exactly what he said. So that quashes the investigation into our accusations of theft.
Have you asked for or received an accounting of your personal possessions and whatnot?
We've asked for, and we've not received it.
Have you taken this up with the RCMP commissioner, or will you? You'll do after your appeal.
We've taken it up with internal security.
Yeah, but after your appeal, if you get the ship back and then this money is missing, something should happen to somebody, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
It was RCMP officers who boarded the ship?
Yes.
And they were in command of the ship from then on?
Yes, a SWAT team from Newfoundland.
SWAT team from Newfoundland?
Well, there were 100 of them that boarded us.
And you swear that you had $2,000 of your personal money for which you had no accounting or...
That was ship's money in our ship's safe.
In the ship's safe.
And the other... See, not one crew member had their cash money returned to them. It was confiscated at the time of the arrest.
Well, much will depend on the state of the appeal, I suppose, before the RCMP, who probably have done an internal investigation to account for it, will respond to your request on that one. My thanks to Paul, what's your name again? Watson, Sea Shepherd Society. And I must say, a fair amount of admiration to him. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have the guts to do it. He's done it. He goes to jail for 15 months. We'll send him food parcels. I might even contribute something to the Sea Shepherd Society, because it doesn't need any food parcels for a couple of months. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Regards to Starlet Lamb, and what's the name of that delightful daughter of yours?
Lanny.
Lanny. What was it she said? Daddy's been to London to see the Queen?
That's where she thought I was, I guess.
Next, we're going to talk to UBC law professor Elizabeth Edinger on the office of the sheriff, not of Sherwood Forest, but of British Columbia. After the break. Elizabeth Edinger is a UBC law professor and one of the authors of a report on sheriffs in British Columbia. Sheriffs, if I can reminisce just for a moment back to '74, were of course known as Barrett's Brownies. And a weird and varied collection and assortment they were at the time. And they moved in what seemed to be vast numbers to replace the work done by the halt and the lame of the Vancouver Police Department, the guys with the bad backs and the bad feet who couldn't go out in the street to work. Nice fellows these policemen were, and so were the sheriffs too. But I'm fascinated, Professor Edinger, what are the terms of reference? Because everyone's seized, you know, in our usual sensational, like, news way, on a minor mention of privatization, and we all have visions of sheriffs working like doctors on fee-for-service, back to the bad old days. So what were the terms of reference of your study for the Law Reform Commission?
Well, my terms of reference were simply to study, to examine the duties and responsibilities and rights of the sheriff in the execution process, which is one very important part of what he does, but not the whole of what he does. And Gordon Turf was asked to study the rest of the office.
Yeah, in other words, this report does not say we recommend the privatization of the sheriff's office.
No, there are numerous suggestions in there, and one option thrown in at the end is privatization, which is not a new option. It's simply a return to the old system.
Yeah, to the old system. So what we're looking at therefore is a report on how the sheriff's office works and what might be done to improve it.
That's correct.
That's precisely what we're looking at.
Yeah.
And privatization, see, we're all jumping at these things because of the instance of privatization of some of the court stenographic work. So this book is not a study of how much money you'd save by putting sheriffs out with private hire.
I haven't exactly talked to Gordon Turriff about the financial aspects of it, but I don't believe that he went into it. I think it was the furthest thing from his mind when he made the recommendation. He had other objects in mind.
All right, now when you look at the operation of the sheriffs and their execution of their duties, is it a good system we have now?
The problem is, it's the system that is being in force, which we inherited from England. It's 19th century law, which has been forced to adapt to present conditions, and of course it doesn't work totally well. It's not as efficient as it might be because conditions have changed.
But am I correct, and you can tell me, is a sheriff's basic function to carry out the orders of the court?
That's one of his basic functions. He has many other functions, one of which is to serve as Barrett's brownies and to guard prisoners and things, and to replace the police so that they could get on to solving crimes. That was a new function which was given him in 1974. He also serves process. He guards the judges, which is the traditional function. He executes the orders of the court.
Mm-hmm. And for instance, if I'm to be seized, if I'm in a civil lawsuit right now,
yes,
I know nothing about this kind of law, so please forgive me, a chattel mortgage or something, and I haven't made my payments, does a private bailiff seize it, or do one of these people seize it?
Normally a private bailiff would seize that. That's a pre-judgment remedy. That's a self-help remedy. The sheriff comes in normally after judgment.
Therefore,
you're talking about repossessing.
Yes, I'm talking about repossessing goods.
Yeah. No, that's not the sheriff usually.
That's not the sheriff. That's still
that's private.
That's a private one. That's the bailiff service.
That's the bailiff service.
And there's a separate act for the bailiff service because there used to be many irregularities and horror stories about the actions.
They're controlled now.
Now, if I am a tenant in a dispute with my landlord,
yes,
is it only the sheriff who can throw me out, and if so, at what stage?
He throws you out after there's been an order for possession, which now probably comes from the rentalsman, but used to come from the courts. And it's called a writ. It used to be called a writ of possession.
In other words, and that's the case, whether it comes from the rentalsman if he survives in present or varied form, or whether it goes through the courts. They're the people who, I've got to go, I'm the landlord this time, I've got to go and get my order from you, the judge. And the judge then gives it to...
And then the sheriff executes it.
Yeah.
He throws you out. With your possessions.
Am I allowed to keep any of my possessions at any time? Remember in the old days...
Well, you keep them. You just don't keep them in the premises. He puts them out.
On the street?
Well, that's a problem. That's one of the problems that's addressed in the report. Where does he put them? Does he store them? Does he just simply put them on the street? We have variations. The report or the study suggests that he should be a little more careful and he shouldn't just dump them on the street because then he could be liable for negligence if something happened.
Oh, many's the time we've done stories about little old ladies being thrown out with all the stuff lying on the street in the rain.
Yeah.
But if you make the Crown look after everything, where does go restraint if we have to hire lockers for people who haven't been lucky enough to be able to pay the rent?
Well, that's a problem, and I don't have the solution. As I say, it's one of the problems addressed by the study. The study doesn't have all the possible solutions, but it's pointed out in the study that some solution has to be found.
Now, one of the areas you may know something about is what about the training of deputy sheriffs? Are they properly trained? There is one sheriff, I presume, and the rest are all deputies.
That's correct.
For each county. Yeah.
Well, in terms of their understanding of the law, no, they are not properly trained, and the law requires that they know the law. And that poses a very great problem for them because they have no opportunity really to learn it. They get a very superficial course. And one of the suggestions made in the study is that they should have access to legal information, that you can't simply take the present sheriffs with their qualifications and assume that they know everything that a lawyer should know.
Well, no, should they be required to have that kind of standard?
The law requires that they do.
Well, the law requires?
Yes. You see, this is because of the old system, where in England the undersheriff, who was the real sheriff, the sheriff was simply a ceremonial office more than anything else, and he was a man of substance who bore some of the costs of the sheriff and who stood behind everything that the undersheriff and the bailiffs and the sheriff's officers did. The undersheriff was the one that really directed things. It was an office which ran in the family very often for generations, and he was a solicitor. So he had a very real knowledge of the law. We transferred the law to our organization, which doesn't have anything like that.
You see, I'm old enough, said he regretfully, to remember the old days of the fees for service for sheriffs, just by the by. And I remember the sheriff of New Westminster, he's maybe watching, and I may be wrong, but I'll take a guess. He's a good friend of mine. I think he made about $35,000 or $40,000 a year on a fee-for-service basis, which was big money in those days. But he had to pay his own staff and all, and he was the sheriff for the courts. He wasn't just a bailiff; he was the sheriff for the courts.
He was a court officer.
Was that the kind of English system?
Yes.
Whereas we then introduced people like Eddie Wells as a salaried sheriff in Vancouver, and Eddie only at that time got about $8,000 a year, which was big money. And that was the first fixed salary sheriff.
That's right.
So what do you foresee as a result of your report to Law Reform Commission?
Normally you foresee nothing.
Come now.
Normally they die. This is most unusual to have this amount of publicity for a study paper. It's not even the Law Reform Commission report.
No, it's a study paper, I know. But here is just one little unfair extract. You see, this is why we go for Showdown for Sheriff. There's a little headline we put on that. Proposal that the council consider, tied to this recommendation, etc., etc. Is a proposal that the council consider whether or not it would be desirable to return to a system of fees sheriffs, either on the Scottish or the English High Court model. Did you find that many lawyers in the province are dissatisfied with the way that the sheriff goes about his work?
In individual cases, yes. I didn't survey the lawyers.
But do you think, from the studies you did of it, that the present law is archaic?
Yes, I think the sheriff needs more help.
More people!
Well, that's one way of solving it. For example, I did the part on the sheriff and the execution process, that is, seizing property under writ of seizure and sale. For the whole of Vancouver, we have 3 execution officers. One guy sits in the office and takes the telephone calls and everything else. 2 of them go around in a car, and they have to find the debtor. They have to find out what property he's got. They've got to decide what property to seize. They have to make an instant evaluation. They have to decide whether it's worth seizing, how much they're going to get for it.
And they've got to leave him some.
They've got to leave him some. They've got to know about that.
This is what I want to go into with Elizabeth Edinger, law professor, UBC, after, a break. I'm going to concentrate this segment with Elizabeth Edinger, UBC law professor, on the section of the study for the Law Reform Commission on the Office of the Sheriff to deal with seizure and sale. And you say there are only 3 people where, in Vancouver or British Columbia?
No, Vancouver.
Vancouver. Now, give me the circumstances of a seizure and sale. Would that be of a house or of property? Or to pay a fine?
Normally the writ of seizure and sale applies to personal property. It is possible to execute against land, but the sheriff only comes in at the time of sale of the land, because we've adapted the execution process to the land title system, so that in order to execute against land, the judgment creditor, or his lawyer rather, goes down and registers the judgment against the title.
That's something different.
That's something different.
But in what circumstances would I get sale and seizure? Of a house, for instance?
Well, that comes under land.
All right, property.
Cars, televisions, stereos. If the judgment creditor has an unsatisfied judgment and he delivers a writ to the sheriff and says to the sheriff, go and seize some property. The sheriff then goes, finds the debtor, decides what property to seize and sell.
And does he take the evaluation of the judgment creditor as to the value of the property?
No, the judgment creditor normally doesn't give him any information at all. That's one of the sheriff's problems. All he's got is the name of the debtor, hopefully the address.
Have you any idea of the state of the collections under sale and seizure? Do they find the debtors? In other words, is 90% of them, do they come to surface?
I think they probably normally find them, but that doesn't mean they'll seize anything, because they may look around and find there's nothing worth seizing. You rarely get the full value of the property seized when you sell it. It's a forced sale.
It's
on an as-is, where-is basis. So the purchaser takes his chance.
At that time, can the sheriff, acting on an order from his court, the judgment creditor's order from the court, can he break into the house?
Not a private dwelling house, no.
Can he break into a building?
Yes, he can. The law says he can. A commercial building.
Can break into a commercial building. Can't break into a private house. So, but once you must you let him into your house?
No, you needn't let him into your house. That's caused enormous problems for the sheriff in the past. If he can't get in, he can't find anything.
Well, you see, I remember the old scandalous behavior many years ago of bailiffs who used to trick people. And
oh, you can trick them.
And the sheriff can still trick them.
He can trick them.
Yeah. In those days, the bailiffs...
Takes a little ingenuity.
Yeah, the bailiffs...
Especially when they're wearing brown uniforms.
That's right. The bailiffs used to wave phony blue papers, which looked like summonses, which weren't summonses, and the frightened woman would open the door. Are you telling me now a sheriff's officer who wants to seize my $5,000 satellite, which I've got hidden in my basement and for which I haven't paid, you can't knock down the door?
No, he can't knock that down the door. If you haven't paid for it, he can't seize it either. It's not yours. He can seize your interest in it, but he can't seize property that belongs to somebody else.
Thank God I was never a liar. Okay, I've paid for my satellite.
Okay.
It belongs to me. And
Right.
somebody's got a judgment credit against me.
Yeah.
He can't knock down my door.
No, he can't.
And
you're living in a private house.
I see, and here come these one big broad man and one tiny little woman in the brown uniforms, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can say, no, go away, or words to that effect.
Yes, you can.
For how long can I continue to say that?
As long as you want.
Well, isn't that stupid?
On whose part? It's
On the
very
law's
clever on your part. Well, seizure and sale is not the only method of satisfying a judgment. They could garnish your wages, your bank account.
The courts can.
If you own shares, he can get at your shares. The sheriff can get at your shares some other way.
But if I've got all my money in gold blocks or silver blocks in the basement and my paid-up satellite, he can't break down my door.
No.
Have you any other good tips for those who want to beat the
No, I'm not in the business of giving tips. I do that in Creditors Remedies.
That's quite fascinating. So you say there must be more training for sheriffs?
Not necessarily. Well, yes, more training would help, but access to better advice would help. Immediate advice. They do have access to advice now, but it's not necessarily as good or as fast as it could be.
Well, they can get the advice from not from judges, no.
From the Attorney General's Department of Victoria.
The Attorney General's Department of Victoria. That's quite fascinating. But there was one little piece that just fascinates me, which is said in your report. When a sheriff apprehends property, he can deliver property by scooping up a handful of dirt or twigs gathered from the property.
Oh, that's the writ of possession. That's not the seizure of property. That's proof to the person for whom he is getting possession that he is repossessed on their behalf.
One other little trick question.
It's a little archaic.
Yeah, I know, but one other little trick question. If the sheriff gets into my house to seize my gold bars, my silver bullion, and my paid-up satellite,
yeah,
can I keep him inside?
No.
Can he break his way out?
He can break his way out. He can also break his way into any vaults or anything that you've got in there. If you have it in a safe down in the basement, he can break the safe.
Once he gets in?
Once he gets in.
And he doesn't even have to have a writ of assistance or anything?
No. Well, he's got his writ of seizure and sale.
Got a writ of seizure and sale. Anyway, one thing we can disabuse people of is that this, while there is a mention that a return to privatization of entrepreneur sheriffs might be desirable for reasons of economy, would that be more efficient?
I think economy is a misuse of the word there. I think the idea was that they would be more efficient in the sense that they would work harder to find the debtor and to find the property. That's economy in terms of their labor rather than economy in terms of the budget of the government.
Except that I must go back to my Scottish background and quote to you the Scottish Law Commission, which says, it has been strongly represented to us that independent contractor officers are likely to be more speedy and efficient in the execution of citation and diligence and more ready to undertake the difficult jobs than salaried officers would be. Yeah. But that's the same.
That's efficiency.
That's efficiency. Yeah. Questions to Elizabeth Edinger on, generally on the sheriffs, but we're dealing really with the execution of seizure and sale of property and those aspects of, or maybe we'll get some calls from sheriffs. Might be able to tell you something after the break. Elizabeth Edinger, law professor at UBC. Go ahead, please.
Hello. I'd like to ask if I live in an apartment building and I see the sheriff's car pull up at front and my intercom rings and I assume it's the sheriff on the other end, and he says he has something for me. Can I come down and pick it up? And I say, no, I can't. And the item in question was, let's say, a summons or something from the court. Someone suing me, and I refuse him. Can the court continue to proceed against me without the service being made?
Well, if they can't serve you personally, they can get substituted service. So they may be able to proceed in the end, one way or the other.
Because it seems that it's an impediment to the action of the courts if there isn't an efficient sheriff service.
Well, the sheriff is doing his best there. Whether he could get in or not is up to you.
Well, yeah,
but we have the rule for substituted service in order to get around that problem.
That's by ads and letters and whatnot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
I've got a couple of questions, Jack. I'd like to ask them and then hang up. One is that where you have joint ownership of property and a registered judgment is registered with the land office, and so they serve you that a notice of judgment has been filed. Can they seize the home when the spouse has a half interest?
Yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
And when a case is being appealed, how long does this hold off the sheriff until appeals are finally all dispensed with?
You normally get a stay of execution until the appeal is disposed of.
No, do you hear that? Normally a stay of execution from the court until the appeal is disposed of. Okay? Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir.
I was awarded a judgment. I was a plaintiff in a small claims action, and this is dating back as of February, as of last year.
Now, we're not acting as your lawyer. Just give us the broad circumstances.
Correct, and I have not been able to collect this judgment award. Now, what I would like to know is how long does this judgment, is it valid for?
10
number
years.
one. And am I completely on my own, as in collecting this?
It's good for 10 years.
It's good for 10 years.
And no, you're not necessarily completely on your own. You can hire a lawyer to help you.
Did you hear that one?
Yes.
You can hire a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm currently enrolled at Douglas College Criminology Department. I'm endeavoring to become a lawyer.
Good, that's your problem. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'd just like to ask your guest if no trespassing signs on your property have any use as protection against the seizure of a car in the driveway.
No, I don't think so.
If the sheriff crosses the property line of your home, you wouldn't have recourse to sue them with trespassing if you had no trespassing signs until they could prove that they had a right to seize your goods.
I don't know of a case where that's actually been litigated. I would guess not, but that's not an absolute answer.
You're talking about a car in the driveway and a proper and legal order to seize the car, obviously.
Well, a boat or whatever it might be in your property.
Common sense would tell you, and I ain't no Chief Justice, that no trespassing sign ain't going to stop the complainant's legal remedy against
Wouldn't
it.
think so.
Wouldn't think so, no. It's a nice idea. Go ahead, please.
Happy New Year to you, Jack.
You too.
This is a question to your guest. I got a judgment summons from the rentalsman, and this was about a year and a half ago, and I've gone through the sheriff's to get summonses ordered through them, delivered, which never came through, and I went through to get a judgment against his bank account, and the bank wouldn't release the money because he was in debt to them, and so far I spent probably in the neighborhood of $80 to get this done, and I'm currently on welfare and can't go any farther. Is there any suggestions I can have?
I'm not in the business of giving suggestions.
It's just a tough one, that.
There's too much involved in that question to answer on the show.
To answer the question. Anyway, Tough, you're on welfare. You spend $80, and how much are you trying to collect?
I'm trying to collect $380 now. The original was $300.
Well, you're probably stuck. I don't think legal aid would help you on that one at all.
And I can't help myself in any way either?
He could deliver a writ to the sheriff.
You can deliver a writ, have a writ delivered to the sheriff, and the sheriff will seize possessions which might sell for $28 or $328. Okay, boy. Elizabeth, we don't want to bog you down in a lot of technical legal answers, but I've enjoyed your explanation of the office of the sheriff, and hopefully we're going to have Gordon Terrafon on his part of the report, which suggests new ways of administering the entire sheriff's program. That'll be for the future. My thanks to Elizabeth Edinger, law professor at the University of British Columbia. Next, I have a couple of things we've got to do, and a time for a 10 or 12 minute free-for-all. If you keep it short and sharp, in the New Year style, and none of this meandering. Is that you? Hello, how are you? Hold on. Yeah, there. After the break. Thank you, Liz. We're going to do a lot of That's a Fair questions this year, and items and follows. But there's just one letter I want to see this morning, and I want to see what you think of this letter. Let's see that letter. 1, 2. Please give us more free-for-all time. Although political figures are educational, last fall they were a bit much. Hear, hear. When you live up in central and northern BC, it's nice to hear how the other half live, and so interesting to listen to their problems and everyday way of living. Calls from Yukon and northern BC may not interest Vancouver people, but they can't have it all their way. Or does your budget not allow for too many outside calls? My budget allows... Anyway, this has bugged me for so long I just had to write from Prince George. My budget allows outside calls. Once we get back into the swing again, we're going to see how far we can go on the CanCom cable system, which is in operation across parts of northern and central Canada, I do veritably believe. And I want to hear from my buddies up at the Great Slave Lake again, or Big Bear Lake, whatever you call that territory up there. And I think we need free-for-alls. Not a phone call there. Disgraceful. Let's go to the second letter. Can we do that? Can you find the second letter? You say you are a victim of a painful heel. This is a funny letter. A man from Calgary told me to wear cowboy boots for 6 months and I would be cured. Cowboy boots in Calgary are one thing. I purchased a pair of high-heeled shoes with pointed toes. I walked away with immediate relief and wore them morning, noon, and night, despite my friends asking me where was my purse. For 6 months, day and night for 6 months, and I have had no recurrence of my torture. As a doctor, I know it is a long and painful process and can be relieved by wearing high heels and more quickly cured. Now, oh, that's nice. Listen, do me a favor. I'm talking to my own people. We're going to have to program the letters so that we finish a sentence on a page, because my voice goes up instead of dropping, and I lose the sense of them, and it all becomes gobbledygook. That was a man whom I met in Maui once a number of years ago, and he had a bad heel. And he said that he'd been told to wear cowboy boots, instead of which he went back to Kelowna and bought a pair of women's high-heeled shoes and wore them, despite people asking him where his purse was, which is not a funny joke to squares like me and my friend in Kelowna. And it cured his painful heel. So today I'm going out to buy a pair of high-heel shoes. And if anybody asks me where my purse is, I'll hit them with my 40-year-old briefcase. You see that? If I suddenly become taller than Art Phillips or something like that, it's not because I'm trying to be big. It's because I've got a bad heel and I've got to wear high-heeled shoes to fix it. Oh yes, there are some phone calls now. Oh, we're waking the people up. First free-for-all phone call for 1984. Go ahead, please.
Is that me?
Certainly is.
Jack, I was wondering about the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Good old Jesse. God bless Jesse.
Office when he's a reverend. Isn't that a contradiction in terms, being a reverend and being in politics?
Of course not. We had a very famous man of the cloth in British Columbia, the Reverend Philip A. Gallardi. We have had many reverends and ministers, and there's nothing wrong with a minister running for politics. In fact, he probably does more good as a politician than he does as a minister. No, it's a silly question. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Jack.
Good morning, ma'am.
I've never phoned you before, but I just want to know how you're doing on your smoking campaign.
I'm doing remarkably well.
Are you?
Yes, the deadline is coming near.
Good. Congratulations, and that's all I have to say. Happy New Year.
Well, more free-for-alls. I'm not so sure about them. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
Yes, you said you wanted to know how far your show went. Well, I lived in Goose Bay in Labrador. I lived up there about 2 years ago, and we used to get you every morning over the satellite network.
Yeah, I don't know what satellite that was. I think that was Anik B in those days.
No, Wanik B wasn't up yet, but I'm not too sure which one it was, but we used to watch out there. We used to get you about in the afternoon around 4 o'clock.
See, I could have been doing this coast to coast for years. Think of the trouble we could have caused all across the country if we could just have got somebody to pick it up. 9 o'clock here, 10 o'clock in the Prairies, 11 o'clock in Winnipeg, 12 o'clock in Toronto,
Yeah,
1 o'clock in Newfoundland or somewhere. That'd have been good fun. Oh, I wish I was 50 years younger. Okay, bye.
Okay, thanks.
So, good morning to Goose Bay. Morning. Hello. Go ahead, please.
Is that me?
That's you, sir.
Yeah, Jack, a long time ago you had this fellow, Luke, that they found with a note pinned on him on the North Van Ferry.
I asked...
Whatever happened to him?
I answer this question once a month. His name was Luke. Luke what? Luke Coolman. Fine fellow. Didn't know when he'd been born or where he'd been born or who really had looked after him for many years. Wonderful collection of musical tapes done by his sister Margarita. He vanished. I think he's dead.
Oh, thank you very much, Jack.
Nobody knows where he is. I think he's dead.
I see. You never found him after he took off
No,
that time, eh?
and God, we tried, I'll tell you. Naramata, go ahead, please.
Now, I'm all for this fees for services, Jack.
For sheriffs. For sheriffs.
Yes, I'm all for this fees for service, Jack.
Why?
I used to work with W.W. Hastings back in Vancouver, and I met you on different occasions.
W.W. Hastings was one of the early and really quite a brilliant sheriff's officer. I remember him well. I trust
Worked
he's
with him.
good for you, and you're back to the fee for service, eh? Okay, boy, much obliged. Go ahead, please.
Yes, what do you think of the BC Hydro strike?
Nobody notices it.
Well, that's the problem. Why does nobody notice?
Because they've enough supervisors to run the system.
Exactly, but why is there no media coverage or anything like that?
All right, you have prompted my conscience. I will do a detailed report if the IBEW will cooperate, and with the Hydro, if the Hydro will cooperate. We will probably will not get them in a face-to-face situation, but they've been on strike since early in November. Is that not correct?
October the 5th.
October the 5th?
October the 5th is when the gas went out.
And even with the high winds, the supervisors have been able to cope with everything.
The electrical went out, I believe, on November the 8th.
Can you send me a copy of the company's demands or the union's refusals or whatever?
I'll try.
Because I happen to know that the company wants to cut back many of the, what were then normal, but now look very generous provisions in call-out times and whatnot. They're going the way of Bill 3 almost.
Right.
Am I not correct?
That sounds like it, yeah.
I must say that I used to be able to get information from IBEW, and I will try again, and I shall take your request for a serious report on the state of negotiations to heart and might arrange it early this week if I can get the cooperation.
Sounds terrific.
Okay?
Okay, terrific.
Bye. Interesting. You know, the strike since October the 5th, I think he's wrong. I think it's November the 5th. October the 5th? And then we've got this business of the BC Hydro trying to flog all the power it can on long-term contracts. Go ahead, please. Hello.
Hello?
That's you.
Yes. Senior citizen question. Now, there's been some news in the newspapers that they're raising the guaranteed income supplement, and could you tell me whether that is definite or not?
The only thing I've seen is a raise. Yes, there will be a cost of living increase. Oh, no. Got it? GIS. Yes.
Yeah.
There is a COLA on GIS. I shall have my friend Donna McPherson on the air to explain that very shortly. We do it once a year for the benefit of old people like you.
Also, there was something about they're going to give via passes to senior citizens on the railroad.
Never heard such nonsense. I doubt that very much indeed.
Well, it was in the news.
Do you know that if you're an old age pensioner like thee or me, that we can ski on all the runs all days at Whistler? Oh, I hope I'm right. For $6? $6?
No, I didn't know that.
If only we could ski. $6. Cost you $6,000 for equipment. Then you've got to get your Pac-Man to put on your head, and the glassy eye that goes with the Pac-Man. Walkman, Pac-Man, Walkman.
Good morning, Jack. Happy New Year to you.
You too.
Hey, Jack, there is a conflict of interest for a man of the cloth holding public office. Let me cite you an example.
I know your voice.
Okay, but let me cite you an example. The Reverend Bob Ogle is the NDP's health critic, okay? Now, the NDP supports abortion on demand, but his Catholic Church is dead against it.
Were you trying to get me in a stew about it this morning?
No.
Ah, you want to know something? I couldn't care less about the Reverend Bob Ogle. I'll be back after the break. I was down in San Diego over Christmas watching the start of the Third World War. You'd think so. Kitty Hawk, world's biggest aircraft carrier. Ticonderoga, demothballing the big ships. Nuclear submarines, supply ships, gunships. Gosh, you can't sleep in San Diego after 6 a.m. because of all the aircraft taking off in squadrons. They still have squadrons. Is that my time up? I'm back tomorrow at 9 a.m. precisely.